All right, we have a room full of people here. I'm just going to check the feed to make sure there's no... All right, looks like we're good. Okay, so happy Friday, everybody. I am Nick Slavic, proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company, also the host of Ask a Painter Live, and I am here at the headquarters, the PDCA headquarters, the Painting Contractors Association. We're going to be doing a very interesting show today. Already it's interesting, and we're gonna make sure we get everybody in here. But we're going to be doing a Paint Ed podcast as well, Chris Shank's Paint Ed podcast. We're going to be doing a really cool kind of dual thing. This is going to be an Ask a Painter show. We're also going to be hot on the mics here with Chris Shank. So, Marcia, Heather from PDCA, introduce yourselves here. I'll back up and make some room for you here.
I'm Marcia. See you in Savannah.
Savannah, Georgia, National Expo, first week of March.
March 6th through 8th.
March 6th through 8th. All right. I'll be there.
I'm Heather. I'll be there.
Heather will be there too. Yep. I think everybody will be here in this room.
Yeah, you're right.
And presenting?
No.
No?
I get it off this year.
Oh man. Well, I'll be presenting part of one of your things, but I'll be presenting too. So anyway, PDC Expo coming up. Thank you to everybody here. Thank you guys for having us here. Thank you for letting me interrupt your day too. So yeah,
we're just the interruption.
So again, Ask a Painter show. Thank you guys for watching. Share this. It's the kindest thing you can do. And this is going to sort of be a loose show because the main purpose is going to be the podcast.
Yep, recording a podcast.
But we're going to give out a lot of good information, and we're going to talk about yesterday. I was here for a speaking engagement, thanks to the PDCA and thanks to Sherwin for bringing me here. And we talked about my solution to the labor crisis, apprenticeship, and we also talked about my brand new master's class on the art and science of estimating art. So, so yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hang with us here. We're going to start the podcast up and get after it.
All right,
so.
here we go. All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it, ladies.
All right. We are...
Do I get headphones so I can
You
be
are going to
official
get
too?
your headphones right here.
Okay.
Nick. And you are going to face the mic, face this dial right here.
Face this.
So your audience can see you.
This right here.
Yes.
Okay.
You're going to be speaking here. Remember, we're speaking to Steve. You're
Stereo.
here. Set up those
nice,
headsets. Right? Let's look professional, folks.
Professionals.
We're on Nick's show.
As long as I can keep my back to art.
Nice.
Okay. Let's do some
Test. Can I go a little this way?
You can. You want to do that? To talk into this thing, he says.
Okay.
We
Is
want
that
to see
super awkward?
fully
if we're just
embrace
like-
Steve, actually.
The other thing is
Steve wants to
you
come
can
this
step
way.
in that way, and
We can move this way a little bit, right? Make sure you come close though, Steve.
Yeah,
So
that
I'm
was
pretty
your
strict, 'cause I think
yeah,
we're-
that works perfectly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you want it higher?
I think his voice is high enough.
I'm just gonna
Yeah, the
stand
over
here.
6-footers
I'm gonna
get
stand
to be
here
over
super
there.
awkwardly like this the whole time and just talk to you. So okay.
Okay, let's get a few tests, guys. Get a few tests going.
I like it when you drop your voice like that. Sounded like cool. Yeah.
Now I know the secret. He's got that bass turned up so high on
He
this
does.
thing. His voice
He
sounds
does.
good.
Nick needs
Ask a
to.
Painter.
Nick, face the dial. Face the. There. Yeah, you gotta do that.
Okay.
Okay, give me
Hey,
some
Slavic.
tests, guys.
Can we do that?
I'm going to start my show called Telepainter.
Tell him.
You're going to ask, I'm going to telepainter. That's right.
Speak here, Nick. Okay. All right, we good? Everybody test? Did everybody give me a test?
I'm good.
Hey, Chris, for clarification,
Yeah.
refer to one of us at least by the last name so we know which Nick you're calling out. I'm serious. You'd be like, hey, Nick, but yeah.
All right.
So
We got this. We're ready to go.
I'll just stop talking.
it's just two
You
Nicks,
are gonna
by the
switch,
way.
you know,
Two Nicks.
squeeze a little
No
bit.
way.
All right. Here's
That's
the deal.
right.
Two
I'm gonna
Nicks,
do
no
the
answers.
That's right. No answers.
I'm gonna-
Ask a painter, telepainter.
I'm gonna. Do you see how this is going?
We're not going to let Chris say
Makes
anything.
real progress here.
We have lost all control.
That's right.
This is going to take
Not on
all
live.
day.
No, live is
All
live
right.
and uncut.
Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to say, "Hey guys, welcome to Paint Ed," because I will have already introduced you in the intro. Okay, and then you all are gonna say, whatever. It's probably something smart aleck. Or
Where's
something
lunch?
Like that.
Who's smart, Alex?
You ready? Here we go. Hey guys, welcome to Paint Ed.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris, great to be here.
Hey, Chris. Glad to be here.
Okay, we are here to talk about Nick Slavic's presentation yesterday at the Sherwin-Williams show here in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was about the modern apprenticeship, and they had an incredible attendance, Nick, right?
Full house, baby. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
I think it's like doubled or tripled what they were expecting.
And they actually closed down registration, and then Shane Garrett somehow weasels his way back in after. He must have put his finger down on his Sherwin-Williams rep to let him in. So no, it was, and people were DMing me like crazy, saying, "Hey man, just saw about this. Can we get in?" At the last minute, Sherwin was really going after it, getting people in. So yeah.
Well, it went really good. There was a lot of engagement. So people were interacting a lot. They loved your presentation. They loved talking about it because this is a hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's talking about apprenticeship, training, where to find new hires, what kind of people are you looking for, what kind of job culture are you creating to attract people, but to keep people. Do you attract talent? Do you attract good people? Okay, so all those things.
And I should say, ABC Magazine, they just put out the big poll of like, what are the big painter concerns? Number one this year, no surprise, there's no good people out there to work. So this is a thing in the industry right now.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Okay, well, let's start talking about a few things. There were some points of discussion that stirred people up a bit, if you will. I would say they seemed stirred up a bit because there are challenges.
Eyebrows were raised.
One of the things you said, let's just keep it, because all of us were talking about this earlier, so let's just get this going. And it was this whole idea of hiring inexperienced people.
No experience.
No experience, but that you called these people what kind of people?
So this is my decent human being theory, where you hire for happiness, optimism, and just being human decency. And then obviously we all know painting is the easy part. You know, if you give any painting contractor the decision, do you want to try to make somebody a good person or a good painter? We would all pick the same thing. So it's sort of like a no duh sort of thing, you know, in hindsight.
The challenge I'm hearing is that people are too busy to train, though. So how Nick, you always impress me because you have 20 people on staff and 22 of them are brand new. So
yeah, so seasonally we run about 13 to 15 in the winter, and then we go about 20, 22 in the summer. And this last summer was sort of the grand experiment. We've always referred to it as the June experiment, where I had 5 or 6 people who knew how to paint, and then a whole bunch of other people who were just warm bodies off the street, and I stepped away and just sort of collected data. And yes, people always say you don't have time to train, but there is a trade-off with this. I'm not doing this because it's just some novel experiment and it's a whole bunch of pain and suffering. What you get when you hire, decent human beings is a lot of the little problems, the 10 to 15% of your day that's taken up with cigarette breaks, somebody took too long of a lunch break, are they punching in before they're supposed to be on the job site, cell phone usage, all these little things that are just like, oh, come on, can we just GPS tracking on punch in? When people, I just don't have those problems. So it's a trade-off. Like, yes, you actually have to spend some time creating genuine human connections with other people, and you have to teach them how to paint. But what you don't have to do is all that little stuff of like, oh, come on, man, you were late 3 times this week, or how many batteries go dead in a week, or, you know, you're sick, or your kid's been sick every Friday for 2 months. It's like, you know, it just, a lot of these guys stand up at these things and they say, well, what do you do about this? It's like, I don't know, I've never experienced that. I wish I could be more helpful.
It's like the teacher that spends 20 minutes every day disciplining class instead of going over the lesson plan. You talk to teachers and it gets frustrating for them. So if you can cut that out and the teacher can actually teach rather than spend 20 minutes reeling everybody in.
Absolutely.
It's amazing because you're already burning those minutes.
Yep, perfect analogy. Yep.
Okay, so I sat in the back row, and we heard people with the challenges, because you get the questions that are asked out loud.
Oh, yeah.
And during breaks and stuff, some people hear the questions that are asked like, I don't know, does that really work? Does it really work? How did he go from nothing to that many? Can he really keep track of everybody? Is it enough to try to use that decent human being qualifier for new hires?
So I will tell you this, there are some things. My business is about 11 years old. I've only had employees for maybe 5 or 6, and in the first couple of years, I was basically recreating what my father had made. A father starts a company, and he expands when his son comes into the company. And maybe you take on some high schoolers in the summer, but I didn't grow up knowing what an employee model, like a real business, looks like. So I did the same thing that everybody did. Some high school kid came to me to work, and we did it. So I had a couple years of doing bad experiments with humans in my company. And I reformed the company just at about the time I lost my 3 people that were working for me. So I had systems and processes in place already for a much larger company. So all I needed to infill with decent human beings. So I was driving a semi truck down the road, and it was 25% full. It was the tank was already fueled up. We had plenty of stuff to do. It's just I just needed to add people. So it wasn't like I started a company and I immediately was like, how do we paint? How do we do? It's like, no, my processes were airtight by then. All I needed were people to do them.
Okay, so let's talk about what a decent human being is, shall we? Let's get philosophical. I kind of like that. How do you guys decide that? I know we talked about your core values in another podcast, and a poster is being released that people can put in the workplace. It's called Pathway to Success. It's your exact company core values, your 5 core values. So it's tied to that podcast. So I think those might be the criteria, maybe if we're looking for a decent human being, or some of them, because they're walking into those values. But I know, Art, you helped him talk through that whole thing and think through it. What did you guys decide on what is a decent human being, and what are they actually looking for in your company that's going to fulfill the needs of a decent human being?
I don't mind starting real quick, but I think a decent human being differs for each company and culture. We're all hiring painters, and we want them to change white walls off-white, but your values are different, even though you're a painting company and the one right down the road is a painting company. So it comes down to getting clear about what your values are and what you think a decent human being is, and that's going to vary. Some guys are going to say, everybody's going to say they deliver great service, right? But that varies on what service looks like. So you have to define that, describe that for you and your position and your culture.
I agree, and if you're an outfit that runs and guns, you got 80 subs under your belt, a decent human being to you is going to be somebody who just shows up and does what they do, and you don't get a call back to a job. For somebody who runs a super touchy-feely sort of family operation, it's going to be a little different for me. And we all create businesses based on our own personalities. They're all going to be different. And yeah, I should say that when I do these master's classes and when we talk about it now, I'm not saying that this is the way to do it. I'm just saying I've done some stuff. I have some data, and here it is. If that helps, good. I hope that does help with you, because I try to track all this stuff, so actual action items for people to do.
But people eat that stuff up, and is that because you're brave enough to do the experiments on your business and on your profit and your family income? You know, that's kind of hard, because you actually put up there on the slides, which I love, like, here was my experiment year after year, and what I was doing with my business. Your business became your game, which I love. But that's easy for me to say because I don't own a business. Yep. What about the people who don't want to run that experiment? I think they're watching you and learning from you and kind of borrowing your lessons a lot. I mean, maybe they're running their own, but they're borrowing yours.
So it almost feels like cheating, but my processes are so airtight that really not a lot of things go wrong unless somebody deviates from my processes. So when I do these experiments with humans in my company, I already know we're not going to lose money. I already know that at least we're going to cover ourselves. Like, I had one crew in June, one of my most senior craftspeople was training 8 people on a job site. Every one of those job sites covered themselves. It didn't cost me anything to have it cost me revenue and potential profit, but I wasn't shelling out things. So I had so many things figured out in my business. Like, I built a business that I understood. It was, my 2 hallmarks are no overhead and simplicity. So the variables have all been removed. I had this super simple thing. All I had to do was find people I know I could trust to show up and do some things. So I felt like I was cheating a little because I knew the outcome was going to be at least 0, hopefully more. It was never going to be a negative outcome. So
when I'm out in the industry giving presentations or whatever, Nick, you're held in high esteem. Everybody loves what you're doing. But you're saying that you had all these airtight processes. What do you tell those people that don't feel like they have those?
Keep going. I mean, I did for the first whole bunch, I think I might have even painted somewhere between 2 and 4 years alone before I took anybody on. And by the time I did that, I had already figured out how to do it. I mean, we talk about Victorian restorations a lot. The first Victorian restoration I ever did, I did it myself. 2.5 weeks, I lived in this house and I restored it all by hand. And I had data. What you don't want to do is do that, not collect data, and not make an action item out of it. The first time I did a Victorian restoration, I was like, okay, my pricing was pretty good. I know there's a bigger market for this. I now know it's not a 6-month project, it's a 2.5-week project. Now that's the data. And I think if there's anything I'm really, really good at, it's the constant improvement thing, where I do one thing and already I'm thinking, here's 3 things I'm gonna do to make it better, make it better, make it better. And that's, if there's anything I do, it's that. And you accumulate 3 years of that on your own. I tested out every product, I tested out every system. I had it down where I believe that I'm not doing artistic work or anything. I'm doing really good standard repaint stuff. And I believe that I have found in my company processes that give the highest quality product for the minimal effort. And I think that's where, over those first 3 or 4 years of working alone, just razor's edge.
So how do you get, so when you're doing constant improvement and you're adjusting those systems, how do you get that out to 22 people in the field in a meaningful way?
The processes were already there. So there's really no adjustments to the processes now that we're doing it. We have, the way it's translated is, I trained the trainers. So when I had three craftspeople working for me, they all left on one Friday night. They had a religious calling and they all left. 2 have since come back. But at that point, I hired 2 people a month, every month, and I hand trained them. And in 1 month, I could make them autonomous. Now, they were not high production, but they were autonomous. They could do standard painting on their own, and we would not get a call back, and we would get paid. I would then take those 2, set them off on their own, and go find 2 more, and then 2 more, and then 2 more. And once I had 4 to 6 of those people who knew what they were doing, I went out and got apprentices and gave the apprentices to them. So now I've multiplied myself, where I have my culture instilled in these people, my processes are there, and now they're taking that to the apprentices. Now, after that, we're starting to play the game of telephone, where you start going 2 years down the road. I haven't been in the field painting. So now we have command books with all of our processes written out, and we do something very special called the verbal drill. So every morning when we're on a job site, the most senior person on the job site will line up all the apprentices, and starting from the least experienced, say, here's our goal today. We have 3 bedrooms to paint. Least experienced person, how are we going to do it? And they have to recite verbally from memory the process, and they get 70% of it right. And then you go to the next senior person and say, what corrections would you make? He says, well, he taped before he did switch plates. It really should be vice versa. And then you go to the other person and they're like, all right, now the system's down. But it's a verbal recitation every day about that. So not only do you have the act, you have the verbal drill,
So
as we call it.
constant reassurance.
And it's all there. Our books are laminated. They're laid out on the job site. I don't assume people read those and memorize those, but that verbal drill is just key, you know. And it's just every day. They know what's going to happen, so it's like they have to recite it.
I see a lot of your success coming from intention. You're intentional. That I think is a great note for the listeners that he does recon after every job to learn for the next one, but that's intentional. He sets time to do that, or that your guys are intentional about setting time to train the newbies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that everybody's focused on it. It reminds me of a garden or any kind of relationship. You have to water it, right?
Yeah.
And when you stop, you get weeds.
And I think it was maybe 2 years ago, another painter that I look up to greatly, that I really model my business off of, was basically saying, you know, is what you're doing intentional or not? Does it feel good? Does it feel good to say it? Or are you actually intentionally going to do something? Because we're starting to hit the point in business where we're time constrained, where we actually have to choose what we do. And he took that to his personal life, his professional life, and everything. Is what we're doing with my spouse, is this intentional? Is what we're doing with my business intentional? So that word intentional, that's all I've thought about for the last 2 years. And it's made a big difference, you know.
I'm trying to steal all of your nuggets and reverse engineer them. So I'm seeing intentionality. I'm seeing you have to have those processes in place first. That sounds a little spooky for maybe people that don't have processes.
Yeah.
But then hire the right people.
And one thing that I probably failed to mention is that going from 0 to 22 in 22 months is super fun and super easy if business is solved and your processes are solved. If you know how to paint and you know how to run a business, then you're just making the train run a little faster down the tracks. But I mean, sometimes I'm too close to this, I'm too far into it, that I forget, like, some people still have questions about the process for enameling cabinets. And it's like, I don't have any of those questions anymore. So I sometimes forget, like, yes, that could be a huge variable. If you have 2 cabinet jobs go wrong and you have 22 new people in the field, light this thing on fire. It's done, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's reorient just a little bit. I made sure everybody's in the camera lens, and we need you to speak up more. They want to hear more of Art and you. So the booming voices are doing good.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me
go
boom
ahead.
for a second.
Boom
What
for
I
a
think
minute.
is awesome too that nobody's mentioned is you're empowering these newbies to train. And I think when you train, you then become better at it, because now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I have to get it right. Nick's counting on me, so I'm going to nail the process down myself by teaching it. And also, this guy who I've been working for 6 weeks, now his entire reputation is staked on this training for these new guys. So I have to look good to the new guys and to the boss. I think it just accelerates the whole process.
There's this
because painters, a lot of times, are afraid to let someone hold a spray gun or let them cut.
Yep.
No, you're rolling for 8 months before you touch a brush,
That
buddy.
was
You
me a
need
year
that
ago.
down. Absolutely.
I used to not let a guy cut a room for a year.
Right, no.
He rolled for a year.
A year, right? No, you're puttying holes and caulking jams until I tell you to do something else.
That's giving him a lot of responsibility. I wouldn't even go
But
that
you
far.
know that the senior journeymen, they're like, no, the sprayer's mine, son. Just step back. But you're like, no, second day, you need to shoot that.
Yeah, we're putting macropoxy on concrete today.
Let's do it. And I think it's
Welcome
just,
to the company.
It's amazing because a lot of times in the trades you don't get that trust from the upline to actually do stuff that people see or that they hold sacred. That like, no, I'm the cutter, so I cut.
And especially when it comes to the spray gun, that's the sexy part.
Oh.
If you that's a kind of a rite of passage sort of thing. And if you got a crusty old vet who's the spray guy, and all of a sudden you're letting a newbie, you want to find something else for him to own, so his whole worth isn't tied up in I'm the sprayer. Because I want everybody to be the sprayer. So you need to give him something else then too.
Yeah, that's right. And then that guy needs to work on his management skills.
Oh yes.
With the other
Now I will say this, that yes, when I say I train the trainers and the trainers are out there training, if you look at our personality assessments that Art helped with, nobody should be interacting with other humans in my company. We're not people. And I know I always talk in hyperbole like that, but we are not salesmen. We are not outward going. We don't energize around other people. And the outcome of that is nobody likes to train in my company. We will do it and we're fine, but we don't. If I just made somebody a trainer and they knew they were going to be a trainer for 2 years, they would not be as happy as if they weren't. So what we do is I have to sort of like see energy levels in my people. And John, my most senior craftsman, when I gave him those 8 people to train in June, I toasted him. I mean, but I was very intentional about saying, John, this is an experiment. I need for 1 month. This is a very specific task. You are now a Green Beret, and you are going to be doing a very specific mission for me. So hang in there, buddy. And I was checking in there with him constantly. Like, everything okay? Like, are you doing all right?
And did John come out the other side a better painter and employee as a result?
You met him at the You guys met him at the residential forum.
He's awesome.
Oh, it's top notch, man. He's a godsend to the company, and he's a tough guy. And now the best thing is, it's like we're old crusty war veterans. We're sitting around talking about, dude, you remember that June experiment? Oh,
How
man.
old is John?
23.
And he behaves like he's 35.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he really does. It's amazing.
Does.
So
Yeah, it's the epitome of
whatever that means. But you know what I mean. He's a grown up. So.
It's the epitome. Oh, you
Not
mean
like
he's
us.
he's
Not
just
like
like
us.
he's got a dead look in his eye? Or?
Yeah. No, it's just, I mean, you can just he's a mature individual, and I
Yes.
think that goes back
He's
to your
the
decent human
epitome
being.
of a decent human being.
Yeah.
He's just like everything that I wish my company that I want to hold out as a hallmark. John is an example of that. So yeah, it's good.
Go ahead.
I heard something I'd like to add to, and that was when you were talking about these stubborn older folks that don't want to, transfer their knowledge to the younger generation. We see as a generality in painting that these are people that have pride in their craft, and it's also something that they protect. It's my craft. I earn this, right? You don't come touching it. This is my daddy's brush.
Yep.
Right? This is how I mix colors, but. I think what you do with those folks in order to get them to train is you bolster that pride and you say, listen, I'm proud of you too, and this is a craft and I want them to learn it your way. So you just transition it into a way and you use their pride and their craft and their trade to make them want to train more.
I agree.
And what's cool is now your way was his way because you just trained him 2 months ago. So there's no bad habits coming over either, which is awesome. It's Nick's way because it's Nick's company, and I think it's really neat.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question, okay?
Of course.
First of all, let me encourage everybody to ask questions again for the show. One question we had so far is, how much time does an apprentice have before he or she gets fired for not producing or not stepping in line or whatever it is? There was going to be more to that question. I think it got cut off, but what's your...
So again, this is going to be another unsatisfying answer in a line of unsatisfying answers. That doesn't happen. They always end up producing. They never end up doing anything untoward. I had one of my young ladies who works for me Thursday morning. I'm getting ready for the presentation in my hotel room, and she just sends me a message on Slack saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry, my daughter's sick. I'm staying home with her today." And I just wrote back quick, "Okay," and moved on with my day. I don't have to do anything past that. What happens after that is she contacts her crew leader and tells him, and the crew leader automatically, if he needs help, he talks to the other crew. He general message on Slack saying, hey, if anybody's got a free person, send them over. I went on with my day, and we started the presentation, and I started thinking about it, and the question came up, well, what do you do with people just like calling in sick all the time? It's like, good point, that happened this morning, and never once did something come into my mind saying, I bet you she's getting one over on me. I don't think she's being truthful. It's just, there's such a base of trust built up already. Not only do I not have to worry about it, it's not even a thought in my universe that this is gonna happen. Nobody gets through my gates where I don't trust.
I think there's a flaw in the question, which is...
Nope, there's no flaw.
There might be.
Oh, you haven't seen my business.
The question was, how long do I deal with them until I fire them? But I think the answer is really when you discover that they are unwilling to be trained. So,
ooh, yeah,
right.
Good point.
Maybe the question is when, instead of figuring out when you fire them, is when do you figure out when to stop training them? Because I think you just have to keep training folks.
Tell me a little bit about, you were telling me one kid was working for you and he kept saying, why you hate me, bro?
Oh, okay.
So he let himself go, correct?
Yes. So there's the "Why You Hate Me, Bro" experiments.
Yeah.
And we had, and I cannot relay the story here, but I have a very, very funny story, almost right out of a movie.
Well, you gotta
about an employee quitting.
Well, you gotta say it, right?
Yes. There's lots of spicy language. I'll try to be good with it.
Let me get my beeper ready.
Okay. So first of all, number one, it's like, okay, yes, I have these stories too because I am a softie and I'm a sucker. And I still have you're laughing because we're probably the same human being. And I still have this thing in the back of my head like, maybe this is the chance he needs. And I think so highly of my company that, you know what, we're such good people. When that person sees what we're doing here, he's gonna clean himself up. He's gonna start talking to his wife again. He's gonna start, He's gonna start reading poetry, doing push-ups, like drinking creek water, listening to classical music. Like, this is the chance he needs.
I do all those things.
Dude, of course.
Creek water, yeah.
But it's like, this is it. Like, I can see traits. I have 5 core values. I can see 3.75 of them in him. And it's like, roll the dice. Roll the dice. And we do it, and it doesn't work out. And once or twice a year I try it, and it doesn't work out. And there's just, there's a young guy who just came on, and every time I was like, hey man, like, we have these 5 core values. We're slipping on trust. Trust is number 1. You gotta gain the trust and maintain the trust. We're slipping, I'm not quite sure that, you know, when you say you're 8 minutes late 3 times this week, I don't trust you that you're doing it for a right reason. I feel like you're just not caring. And then, you know, he'll poke around with a brush all day. I'll stand there and I'll correct him. Stop, hold the brush this way. Stop, hold it this way. I come back 2 weeks later, he's still holding the brush the other way. I'm like, something is not connecting here. And then I get,
why you hate me, bro?
Why you hate me, bro? Seems like you're really pushing me here. I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, look at your compatriot over here. You got 8 other fresh guys off the street here. 7 of them, I corrected them once. I never had to do it again. It's like, I don't hate you. I want you to succeed. And you get 8.
Why you hate me, bro?
You get 8 of those. You gotta go, why you hate me, bro?
Yeah.
And you get enough of those in a row, and I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. You have now hit a wall, and I'm trying to drag you over this wall, and you're kicking and screaming. So I'm sorry, it's just not gonna work out. And then you get the long text message like, I did everything for you, I did all this. I'm like, I'm so sad for that. Like, you had a chance. All you had to do was not that. and it's like, you're good, you know?
The thing that you are, don't do that.
But I also realize there are some young people. I get these, you know, 15 to 18-year-olds that are just like, I mean, beyond decent human being. Like, oh my God, I need to change some of the things I do. Like, these are really phenomenal young people.
You're training people that are going out to the mission field.
Yeah, I mean, nobody has ever left me and either been a painter again or started a painting company. They've all gone, you know, except for Why You Hate Me, Bro. He might be doing something else now, but college, army, religious pursuits. I mean, I had, I'm a super windbag, I'm sorry, but interesting story just happened this last week. One of my young fellows who left me on that proverbial Friday night where I sort of reset the business, he told me, you know, he was like 14, 15 years old when he came to me. His parents, he was a homeschooler, and his parents were like, all year round, every Friday, I want him to come work for you as sort of like a work release program. You know, because he's homeschooled, he needs to be out there among like a strong male figure, doing a trades job, being around other people. And I had this like 14 or 15-year-old with his parents' permission work with me all year round, every day. And he was one of the ones who quit on that Friday night. And he told me, I love mission work more than anything else. I'm devoting my life to this, but I'm also going to be a pilot so I can fly mission trips to Haiti. I hadn't seen him in like 2 years. Saw him in a coffee shop 2 days before I came here, and he's a pilot, and he's going to fly mission trips to Haiti. Wow. And I was just like, great. I mean, that's like, I could
You can't hate on him for that.
Who has that level of direction?
We're serious.
And I was like, you know what? I hold him up as a hallmark of my business just as much as I hold up John, who's still working for me. It's like, that's the kind of thing I want to produce. If everybody stays with me for 1 to 3 years and goes off to fly mission trips to Haiti, I will consider this the most successful business on the face of the planet. You know?
Okay, let me ask everybody here. Okay, let's get some diverse opinions here from different backgrounds. Because you're a business owner, painting business here in St. Louis, SNL Painting. You were part of SNL Painting. You own your own business, Interview Advisors. You are an executive director here at PDCA.
Oh, I am.
So everybody's like in management and ownership. Okay, so when you're hiring,
What do you do, Chris?
don't worry about that.
We love
Let's
you,
just
though.
keep
It
that
doesn't
vague.
really matter.
Let's just keep that vague.
Flips and shakes and does push-ups.
Well, I was going to say, it's kind of like, Office Space, where it's like, so what do you do?
I just got one question for you. Why you hate me, bro?
I don't hate you, bro. I love you, bro.
All right.
Yeah.
So what are the qualities of a decent human being from other perspectives, okay? Name your 5 values real quick, and then I want to go, just name your values you're looking for in people.
Gain and maintain trust. Quality always wins. Constant improvement. Produce. And discipline equals freedom.
Nice. Okay, give a few, it may not have to be so axiomatic, but what are a few of the qualities you're looking for in a new hire?
Can I jump in?
Or with business owners.
Breathing is a good start.
Breathing.
But it's just somebody who's willing to listen, who's willing to learn, who wants to learn a craft, who doesn't want to work the drive-through at any of the fast food joints anymore, or be a clerk at a gas station and want to go out and actually learn, a real trade or a real job, something they can carry on their whole life. Even if they work for us for 2 years, they're always going to know how to paint. You watch Mr. Slavic here, who doesn't get his hands dirty anymore, can still throw down a bedroom in 240. You know what I mean?
Represent.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just, we were talking about decent humans earlier, and you just innately know those decent humans. Like when you do go through a drive-through, or you do go to Best Buy and buy something, and the cashier, you're like, man, that's somebody who I would love working for my company. You can just tell by the attitude and how they speak, and they're respectful, and I bet you they clocked in on time, and you just know. So.
Okay.
You get that feeling right away, and also kind of like with the "why you hate me, bro" kid, you probably knew right away that he needed some work, and it probably wasn't going to work out, but you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
It's the chance he needs, in air quote. And you go into it intentional, but they're young people, they don't ask for much money, and you're like, I don't know, he doesn't seem violent. So.
And you already thought, like, what am I getting myself into? Now
okay, he's on a crew of 4 people, the other 3 could take him if something goes south. You know what I mean? Like, they could subdue him until the cops get there, so.
Okay.
But
so
you know what I
Chris is
mean,
right
most
out
of us
there.
know.
Chris is right out.
Most of us just know when you're dealing with good people.
Yeah.
And then you can ask a few questions to really hone in and then see how they behave.
But I will tell you this, though, when I first started taking on employees, I was lulled into complacency by I'm the best. I love this. I love the opportunity, and I never quite got past that because I thought, well, why would they lie to me? Why would they not do that? So
who lies?
I never had bad employees. I just had people that I didn't define my core values. I didn't have any hiring criteria. So when somebody said something that was like, oh, that sounded nice, I hired them, and nothing went bad. But you need reps. Like, how many people have we probably hired? I mean, dude, I've probably done 40 interviews in the last 3 years. You get some data real quick.
Okay, let's Steve and then Art.
Yeah. Certainly with our hiring processes, the things that I'm always looking for is fit for need. I always want everybody to have a game plan who's here. I want to know, what are you wanting to do with your life? One of the things that I have always put a high value on is the ability to have a conversation with every person who's working as part of our team and say, where do you want to go? And if it's not here, that's okay. And if it's not here, tell us, what do you need to accomplish while you're here to be ready for the next phase of life? Because we know we're probably not going to give out gold watches. And we know that that's the joy of nonprofit work, is that people are on a journey, right? And we get to see them. We're one of those groups that gets to say, oh, I remember him when. It's one of those things, is we know that there's an opportunity for them to go on to greater good. So for me, I want somebody who is teachable. I want somebody who has a game plan for where they want to head, and I want to give them every resource they can have to get there, but along the way they're going to be a fit for our culture. So one of the things that we do here that may be a little different than what you all do is when I come down to my finalist, I cut them loose with the staff on their own. So we have a meeting where our whole team goes into a room and the candidates come in one after another because I want to know about cultural fit. So, and I never let anyone go into that room that isn't qualified to do the job and would be successful. So that's my check, and I'm surprised about half the time the person I thought would come out the other end is not the person, and for really good reasons, because the rest of the team spotted something in them that they said, you know, I think we'll have to wrestle with this with that person, but the other person, here's their skill set. So they get to make the ultimate call, because we all know we spend so much time with our work folks that we spend more time with them than we do our families.
Yes.
And so if that's not a fit, and if everybody on the team isn't behind that person and has their back and wants them to be successful in the long haul, for us it's really a challenge to have people who don't fit into that.
Yeah, right. And can I touch on that for 10?
Yeah,
or
please.
it's your turn, please. Okay. Well, in our industry, there's a lot of people that are just painting for now, or painting because their band isn't making any money, or they're waiting until they're out of college,
Fired from McDonald's.
or as soon as my wife gets her nursing degree, you know, we're moving to Minneapolis
Yep.
or wherever isn't your town. And I think to know that up front, it's like, look, man, I'm going to give you 24 months. I'll give it 110. I'll hire that guy.
That's
Oh,
so
of
helpful
course.
to know.
You know what I
this.
mean?
Yep.
And we've had guys when we were in business, like one, he's like, I think I'm going to go to law school. And we're like, and you haven't started because,
Yeah.
you know, he had a criminal justice degree, but he's like, I'm 30, I'm too old. Like, you're crazy. He was done when he was 33. He's a successful lawyer now. I mean, I
we have
never
had
want to
people-
stifle someone from bettering themselves.
We encouraged,
we
we
have-
encouraged him to
Yeah,
do
I want
that.
to say we
Yeah.
forced him to do what he's doing. To get out, go do it.
We
It's
have
great.
had people walk through our door who were like, one, there's no way we can afford them. How did this person ever come to us? Because they are so talented. And they say, yeah, I'm available for a period of time while I move in this direction. And we say, great.
Isn't
How
knowing
do
that
we
up front
utilize-
key?
Right, and how do
Yeah.
we utilize their skill set to improve our processes and better our team? And then you're bringing them in. I mean, people pay a lot of money for consultants. And a lot of times those
Not enough.
Oh, yeah.
Shameless plug, everyone.
Wow.
Our prices are going up in Q2.
Oh, man.
So I better get some
I
consulting
know,
done
that's
quick,
right.
man.
I'm selling gift cards right now.
Yeah. I got my punch card half filled
That's
already.
right.
So.
Did the heat turn on in this room?
It did.
It got pretty.
There's a lot of
cold.
huffing going on too.
So all that said is that you know, there are people out there who have a desire to work in your space that may seem overqualified and, oh, we'll lose them in a year. You know, I know there are some famous basketball coaches who will remain nameless who said, no, we're going to grow our own, Duke. And they said, I will only take someone who's going to be 4 years at Duke. Well, then they started having to play those competitors who were going to go to the NBA in a year, and they said, those guys are on my competitors' team. So maybe I'll change my view of, I'll take a short-term player because I know when we hit the court, we're probably going to beat the other team because we have this talent. So I absolutely value short-term
But
people who come
there's
in.
not to say, and this is something we explicitly talked about yesterday, was there is a sentence at the bottom of the sheet that I hand somebody during our interview right before they're hired that says, I promise I will treat you like you will work the rest of your life with me. I hand this to a 14-year-old kid who's working for 2 months in the summer. I hand it to that one kid that homeschool kid who works with me a day a week every year. Because listen, they may say 24 months. If we make this sexy enough, this could be forever. I
Maybe
mean,
36.
Yeah,
That's
listen,
right.
Hey, listen, man. and
I'd
based
like to
on-
buy a vowel.
Based on industry standards, though, I mean, if you could keep somebody for 3 years, I think you would wave the magic wand and do it, right?
Yeah, and you're right. And I think as maybe business owners like you and I and others can make it more attractive,
Right.
long term, to be where it is a good culture, like I was talking about yesterday, where it's not adversarial and they only show up for the paycheck.
And before I go into my whole what it takes to get people into the industry thing, Art, we never let you talk.
I was going to say, go.
Please
Let's hear it.
talk.
Let's hear
Please
it.
talk.
Yeah, what do you
No,
got?
please.
Can I preface
It's
it
his
with-
turn.
can I
Sorry,
preface it for you?
that was 10 seconds of 5
Let me-
minutes.
Yeah, my bad.
On your beat, I mean, the cool thing about, you guys are business owners, you are a business owner, but you used to be a painting business owner.
Art's got a
But
real
the cool
business
thing,
now.
Steve is here at PDCA, works with a lot of business owners, obviously. But you do, like, really, you consult with a lot of business owners. So I think you could bring, like, a rich perspective to this. So I just want to set it up that people ought to listen when you speak in a different way than they're listening to the rest of us. Okay.
And it's different industries too, so he can,
Now,
you know.
do not fail.
Yeah, that was a big
Would
setup.
you like to turn so people can see you?
No.
Okay.
Here's what we're seeing. We're collecting the data. It's interesting. There's a book out there called Traction right now by Gino Wickman, and he talks about how the business owners are these visionaries, and they all need this integrator. And I like that he put a name around what this person is, but somebody who takes the ideas from the visionary and drives them through. But we've been collecting data because we keep getting these calls, and I think Nick might have mentioned this that in his call to us, but he said, I need an integrator, right? So we're measuring those things, and what we're finding is that...
Come here so they could hear you, so you could at least project that way a little bit. Okay.
Better?
Yep.
If you can't hear it, he's pure gold coming out of Art right now.
Geez.
So.
What we're finding are when we create a benchmark for a position, we're finding these skills and traits that always seem to bubble up that business owners want, and they seem to be project management, time management, personal accountability, goal orientation. Does that sound right, guys?
Yeah,
I
those
mean,
are all good
sounds
things.
familiar.
They always boil up
That's
to the
John Schwent in a package, right?
Yeah, yep. I think it's really important that we make sure that the values also come with them, because the skills are great, and we can teach those skills, but the values, the things that I wish that people had were EQ, and that's, we can't use that in pre-hire yet, emotional intelligence, but are they aware of themselves, and are they aware of what they do to other people? If they have that.
Are you talking about loud talkers that don't know they're talking loud?
That's it.
And other things. Are
Close-
you pointing to me?
close
Why you hate me, bro?
Why you hate me, bro?
Close talkers,
Close
loud
talkers.
talkers, over talkers, interrupters.
You know, my mom yelled at me about that when I was a kid, and it didn't sink.
I wasn't looking at anyone. Another thing, if I could choose one skill or one attribute, it would be a passion for learning, and the skill would be continuous learning skills. Because if you are a curious person and I can teach you something, then I can teach you anything. And that can be people skills, that can be how to behave better, that can be painting skills, it can be financial accounting, whatever it is. But if you have a willingness to learn and the skills to be a good learner, then I feel like I can work with you.
Can you tell everyone how you're an introvert who talks for a living? What did you have to do to be able to do that?
I had a preference not to be on stage or talking for a living, but when I learned that about myself, that my preference is not that I built interpersonal skills and empathy and understanding others. And
Did you put a system together to do that?
of course I did.
Of course you did. And that's what this guy does too. Believe it or not, both of you.
Yeah. very
Except you were
system-driven.
intentional. I beat
You were
myself.
intentional too. You just didn't know there was science to it.
I was unintentional. So what happened was I used to beat myself up about there's nothing better than me sitting in the woods alone staring off at the sun. Like, that's the greatest. I get so much out of that. But then there's this whole public speaker thing. I really get a lot out of it, but not before or during. It's like and I beat myself up about it until Art was like, hey, there are two parts of you. Don't kill yourself because you feel this certain way. You're naturally inclined to do this and maybe not this. That's why this gives you this feeling, you know? And now it's like, oh, okay, moving on. That's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and once you know that, and then you have to build those systems or processes to get you around that stuff.
And one system is not alcohol and drugs.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep it clean, right?
True statement.
Okay, first, let's do something here. Everybody start speaking up more. We're getting questions like about
okay.
volume. So it's easy for us to speak into the mic because we're doing a podcast. If you're just joining us, we're doing a podcast here. So I did turn the mics a certain way to where you can speak louder. They want to hear you guys. We got a couple questions here. And the questions are, first of all, how much time does an apprentice have? No, I already asked the question. How much do you push your new guys before they're producing their worth?
Well, producing their worth is a very specific metric. I would say from day one, they're not losing money. So from day one, I mean, if you hire somebody for, somewhere between $10 and $20 and they just help one of my craftspeople, technically they're producing $10 to $20 of revenue per hour. Now the different metric would be industry standard revenue production. So industry standard is $55 an hour revenue
right.
production, give or take. So you really want your employee to produce $55 of worth every hour. That's a different metric. I would say immediately they cover their costs. So people always say, what's the cost of training? It doesn't cost you. I mean, it costs you potential revenue. 2 weeks later, they can produce somewhere between their worth and the industry average. Somewhere between that 2 weeks and a year is when each person is different. They're going to excel differently. But I would say 2 weeks I can make a viable painter. Somewhere between 1 month and 6 months, I can get somebody to be just sub-industry standard, give or take. Lots of repetitions, though.
You think?
2 weeks, that's amazing. And I don't think it's unthinkable. It just takes intentionality and setting them up with the right people and having goals of what they're supposed to learn when they're out in the field.
And a process.
And a process. But after that, it takes a long time. I mean, even my most senior person in the company, you know, the most tricky thing a lot of us do is wood finishes that are clear, and it's rife with disaster. And even me, it's not a brainless process. I have to keep myself keyed in. That's a long time. You know, I mean, that's like in 2 weeks somebody can be viable. 6 months they can be pretty good. Somewhere between that 6 months and 2 years is where I consider they're craftspeople. You know, I would 1 year to 2 year, somebody's like, ooh, they're doing really good work out there.
But you can get them cutting and rolling walls in 14 days.
In a day.
Right.
There you go.
I mean, in a day, they're not hitting the ceiling, they're not painting the carpet. You
There
know,
you go.
so, and again, it's one of the keys to that is this was a big risk, and nobody has given me more kickback than when I say this. But at the start of 2018, when I had a whole bunch of people, I told them, don't worry how long it takes you. Take a year to do that bedroom. I don't care. Just do it perfect. Do not get a call back. And because everybody, when I interviewed them, I noticed they were all trying to say, well, I've painted before. I helped my dad paint a fence, or, you know, I really want to do this fast for you. And I'm like, stop. Just don't. That's not why we're here. Do it good. You will always get fast. And it's a big roll of the dice, because what if everybody took a year to paint that first bedroom? I mean, this thing would have gone up in flames. What it did was it took all the stress off them, and I told them, if you guys come with me and do this, and you just make our clients cry when you leave the house, if I'm a good enough entrepreneur...
In a good way? Or
Yeah.
because you stole
Yeah,
all
it's
the
like,
stuff?
exactly. Oh, yeah, we cleaned them out. No, but if
You even mount the floors.
if we
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
so if you make our happy clients, if I'm a good enough entrepreneur, I will make sure that this business runs. Financially, I will take care of you guys. You do this for me, I do this for them. They immediately, the money was taken out of it. I didn't even give them hourly budgets for the first 6 months of 2018. It's like, go out there, do not get a call back, make these people happy, do whatever it takes. And honestly, it worked really well, but it was a big gamble.
One mantra we used to have, I don't know if you still use it, but we used to say that quality keeps your job and speed will get you raises.
I stole that, and I
I
used
forgot
it.
about that, but I might dust that off. No, that's wonderful.
It's actually written into my proprietor's drill. At the end of every Monday morning meeting, I have that as something that we mention.
Question real quick, guys. Do you have
Oh,
something?
no, I was just going to say maybe we should power through some of these questions.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
we got another
Yeah.
question, then we can move on to the next thing. Is there any hesitation to first implementing and then integrator? Does that question, maybe it was maybe there's
Say
a
it
typo
again?
in there. Is there any hesitation to first implementing and then integrating? Maybe does that
Or
sound right?
Is that adding an integrator before you add it?
First implementing and then integrating. So maybe we implement something and then make it company-wide.
Oh, Parker, that's one of my guys. Parker's one of my apprentices.
Oh, well, give him a call.
What's up,
What do you mean?
Parker?
He is
Yeah.
a 7-foot-tall cavalry scout soldier in college going for business. He's a high-speed dude. So Parker, he actually helped me out with some business analysis over his winter break. So
Nice.
clarify that a little bit, whether you're talking about a specific process or whether you're talking about a human.
Okay, so clarify that, please. But the next question: Do you have or keep guys who you know won't be a craftsman, who will not be more than a helper or whatever the next position would be? People who don't really move on to the next level.
So there's the Minnesota nice side of me that says, I generally wouldn't hire anybody who I didn't believe has a chance to work with me their entire life, progress through this, and possibly move up into some management role in my company. Now, whether their personalities fit that or not, but in a hindsight, after a year of work with me, I do realize that there's some people that will be intentional and tell you. I had one person this last year say, I love this, but I just don't desire to lead a crew. Like, great, thank you for telling, that's awesome. I will pair
Yeah.
you with
Glad
somebody
you brought that up.
and you will be awesome. There's some people that will not tell you that, and you can see it, and I'm fine with it. You adhere to my core values, you do quality work, you just tell me what you want. And the important thing is
they have to understand though, because I've had those too who say, you know, I want to sit still, and I'm fine with them sitting still, but understand there is a cap for what I can generate revenue.
Just going to bring that up. Good
for
work.
who you are. So if you're going to do that, you know, I always tell my kids, I say, you have lots of opportunity, and decisions you make narrow that. Or broaden it. So if you're making decisions that are all good and wonderful and all that, you keep all your opportunities open. When you start making bad decisions, you narrow your opportunities. Not even bad decisions, but when you make a decision that isn't in the broad interest of things, you're still going to, there's an outcome to that. And so if a person wants to sit still, they can sit still, and we still want them to grow though, in that position, what they're doing. You know, if somebody doesn't want to lead a crew, I sure as heck want them getting better in craft.
Yep.
And want them to be able to do that. But understand that your wage is probably going to stagnate. However, you'll be happy. And I'm happy to meet them there, but just don't think that you're just going to keep getting.
Yep.
Well, I think it helps set the expectation for everybody too, that this guy or gal, awesome painter, I just want to paint. I don't want to run stuff. I don't want to train. I just want to be a great painter. And I'll say, well, fine. Your salary is going to stop here. Are you comfortable with that? Because
Right.
if they're not comfortable with that, after a while they're going to get disgruntled and frustrated and probably not be the best employee.
Right.
So as long as they know and there's an understanding, there's a place for you.
And
For
you
someone who makes
explore-
make $12 forever and full drop claws and scrape and things like that. So.
And you explore other opportunities for them, because that's the other thing is when I hear that somebody says, hey, I want to kind of stay in this role, well, what is it about a different role that makes you uncomfortable?
Yeah.
What is it about this you really love? And sometimes we find out that they could be in a different role in the organization that is an escalation, does help them in their career path, does do that, but they never even thought that they would be a consideration for that role. And then you put them in that role and they shine and they're doing better and they're financially better and they're growing, but they were just in some place where they said, I don't want to take the next step forward, I need to go sideways.
I love that, because they might not want to manage other people, but
Right.
you find a role where they can be very effective doing what they're great at. And,
Right.
it's a move up.
Can
But
you help
again-
with things like that? I think you can.
I think-
yeah.
But remember, they may say something, the words coming out of their mouth may be that, but you might have asked me 2 years ago, hey Nick, what size business do you want? Like, I don't know, I guess I could have a person or two. Sometimes I can't verbalize because I don't know yet. So it's good to always, it's amazing if you ask them the information that they'll tell you. And it's sort of like, you know, and that's why, you know, quarterly reviews that we do I sit down for half an hour to 45 minutes with everybody in my company and just say, what's up? What, and that's where I get the stuff. This last quarterly review is one of the greatest ones where I had one person come up and say, I really want to be part of a crew, not the crew. And I also had somebody come up and say, I want to be your trainer. I was like, oh, thank you.
I think this is a great time when somebody shows interest in moving up and they want to be a crew leader. That's a great time to assess them. You know, you can use standard tools like what I use, or just evaluate them on your own to say, what skills do I need to give this person, or provide education around so that they are a good crew leader as we promote that. But it's a good time to start ramping up to make sure that as they become a crew leader, they have the skills needed.
All right, I'm going to squeeze in here every once in a while so I can project that way. So the integrator question, it's about adding an integrator to the business. So taking Nick's business dream and implementing it across the different crews, does that idea worry anyone to put that much trust in someone?
No, I don't have a choice. I have hit time constraints right now with my business where in the last 2 to 4 weeks, the first time in my life, I've had to actually decide between doing something and not doing something. And thank God that we started a 6-month process of finding a production manager, because my production manager started last week and we're training. So it came at a perfect time. And whether I want to or not, whether I want to put all my trust in this person or not, if you're not willing to try, you're not going to play the game. And I won't have the option of my time being freed up if I'm not willing to trust somebody. So again, if you put the hurdles out, somebody that gets to me is going to be the most trustworthy person I can produce. And we followed a system, a long system, a thorough system, and that's what came out. So if I want even the chance of something, you got to try it, right?
Thorough, not long.
Oh yeah.
Turn that way. I'm going to slip back.
But it was, I think, there was such a good process, because at the end of it, I had 3 to 4 people who were just like, I have to find something to do with these people, like super substantial people, and it was a very hard decision. So yeah.
Nice. Trust is not just binary, right? It's not on and off. So just know that trust is it comes on a spectrum. So I might trust Nick with, you know, getting me a soda today, but not my checkbook. So.
Dang! Why you hate me,
Why you
bro?
hate me,
Why you
bro?
Yeah. So the same with your staff. As you bring them on, you give them a little bit of trust, and when they earn that, then you know they don't steal a scraper.
Totally. Like I trust my 5-year-olds to do certain things, but not, you know, maybe get ready in the morning without a little monitoring. So.
But also
Sorry.
if we don't get in,
Now everybody's.
if we don't get into a position of hiring people and letting them loose, I mean, setting expectations and then say, I hired you to do this thing over here or cover this segment, I think if you don't cut them loose and trust their process of going through it, because the reason you hire someone to take on something that you're either not doing well or you don't have time for is you want them to take care of it. So I always want to come back to, I hired you to do that, so do it. Involve me when you need to. When you have questions, when you hit a roadblock or whatever. But for goodness sake, tell me what we need to do to be successful in a given area. I recall Chris and I sitting down, it's getting to be a long time ago now, what, 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and sat down and just said, what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong? And he laid all this out and said, this is what we need to be spending our time on. I said, great, let's do it. And you have no money to do it.
Like, just do it? Like, really? Just,
Yeah.
and you're like,
I said,
well, yeah.
And
And
isn't
I'm like,
that-
well, I'm scared. I'm
Yeah,
scared.
I said, isn't that why you're here? You're here to make these decisions and listen to people and find out what they need. So here we are in 2019. We have a trade best practice series that's going out with Teach Construction Initiative. We're going to be launched in every high school that wants it, every trade school that wants it, every to-work program that wants it gets it free, because we've had people in the industry who have backed us. We had the Benjamin Moore Giving More Foundation that funded it and says, we're going to have this program now that entices people into the industry.
Well, it's every painting company will have this.
We'll get to that in a
Okay.
second.
All right.
So this is the first introduction, is this is going out to the marketplace in a spot where we're getting 16 and 17-year-olds interested in it. But then they challenged us as a group that's trying to entice people into the trades, and they said, well, what happens when we get people enticed into the industry? How do we make sure they go to work for decent human beings? So that was a challenge for us, so we said, we have to establish an apprenticeship program that is going to work for them. We have a federally approved, state approved apprenticeship program in California that we're now bringing to, there's a variety of states out there that do not have any kind of apprenticeship program, especially for residential painters. And we looked at that and said, okay, so we're developing that now to go hand in hand with this Trade Best Practice Series onboarding. And in addition to that, we then have to vet the people who are going to get these candidates. So when you have a 16 or a 17-year-old who can come through an apprenticeship program while they're in high school, who can see a path, our job is to articulate that path, to show them the trajectory and say, these are all the ways you can go. Add to that our association health plan that'll likely be out mid-year this year. Now you start talking to the parents of 16 and 17-year-olds and you show them a path. You say, so rather than you saving up for 20 years to send your kid to college, 70% of people do not have college degrees. So rather than saving your whole life to drop $100,000 on their education, your student at 16, 17 could be going through introductory programs, could be going through apprenticeship programs that put them in a position to be generating revenue. Average painter, what did we say, 40K? At 18, 19 years old, with a trajectory in a lifetime to be a business owner, to work for one of the industry, to be anybody in this room right now, because we all work in the paint industry. But you show that trajectory without debt, but earning income, and that becomes a really, I mean, if you look at somebody who goes straight into painting out of high school, or if somebody gets a head start on that going in, you look at their quality of life at 25 compared to their friends who are coming out of college.
And you're only limited by your own willingness to put forth effort, which is nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was even a decision we had to make when we start looking at the apprenticeship program. You say, is this going to be time triggered that you move from apprentice 1 to 2 and on up? Or are we going to do it based on skills? And the resounding answer was skill-based. You know, time-based allows you to recoup some of your training costs, and it's certainly a valuable way of doing it. But for us, we were saying it needs to be skills triggered. When they have the ability to do this, because like Nick said, that takes all the pressure off them if you say, all right, you're going to be at this level for a year, and then you're going to move to the next. Well, what if they don't get it in that time? What if they're not the fastest moving one? Or what if they're exceptional and they have to wait for the least in the class to get up to that for them to move forward?
And just some encouragement for other folks who have training programs. Make sure you're focusing not just on painting skills, but people skills too.
Absolutely.
The softer things like time management or customer service and things.
Yeah, because that is also something that we see as, because we're all competing for the same bodies in the marketplace. I mean, every bit of economics says we all have to compete for this work. But if we can articulate a story to people at any age, I know when we first went into the partnership with Teach Construction, they put 500 students through the year before, and the average age was 33. So this is not just you know, sometimes people reach a point in life where they say, I'm ready to do something significantly different, and if we show them a pathway into painting coating industry, pretty good place to be. It's always growing, you know, with a few exceptions. Let's go back to, what, 08?
Yep.
Is that a challenging time for
I started
for a lot
my
of
business
folks?
at that time, so I
Right.
have no data.
Right, so, you know, we're looking at that and we say we have to show a continuum for every person out there on what they can do within this industry, and that it's incredibly rewarding. And when you start, you know, you have parents who say, but they'll never make a six-figure income. All right, I can show you thousands of people who are making six-figure incomes in this industry.
And I think that's the biggest thing when we think about, like, you know, wow, where's all the kids in the trades? It's like my father's generation did not do the best job of showing happy, well-off examples of trades entrepreneurs. It's always
Decent
just
human beings.
decent human beings. But you know, you would see the people who were really good at the craft, and it was directly correlated with how many joints have been replaced in their body. And later on in life, it was like those didn't necessarily, when you think of framing carpenters, you don't think of maybe the happiest people on earth. So it's like, no wonder these young people aren't attracted to the trades. Like, we need to take these examples of trades entrepreneurs and put them out there, and it'll do two things. It'll inspire people to just own a business. Who cares if you can even paint or not? Just own a paint business. Some of the most successful paint businesses that we know of, some of the owners don't even paint, or they never have painted. Or it might inspire them to get into the craft. They're multipliers in that way.
Right.
Well, all of us in this room are within 10 years of age.
Mhm.
And I can't think of anybody's parents or high school counselor that said, well, there's the trades too. It's you're going to college. You're going to learn this so you can.
I grew up in Michigan. They prepped us all for the factory. So
Okay, so the factory.
we had to
But-
take. We had to take.
How about this? Trades are something that you fall back on, not something that you look forward to.
Yeah.
It's never been preached that trade is something you can take pride in, something you can love, something you can do till you retire. And maybe if we open the dialogue with our kids, that's okay, that we can do that. It's a good job.
Well, it used to be, well, if they're not really college bound, you know, there's
He can always go be a framer.
or join the Army.
Yeah, or be
And
a
now,
laborer.
neither of those are true.
So, but I guess
You
my,
do have to be smart
you
to
know,
be in both of
maybe
those
the
areas.
kids that were born in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, probably 90s, even more so, you're going to college. You need to worry about college.
Well, that's how high schools
All of your
are
high school
structured.
is geared towards college. Do they even have shop class anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's what's the average age of a tradesman now? Around 50?
Oh, there are boomers, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of
53,
19-year-old
yeah.
painters.
No,
You need
no.
the 19-year-olds on the ladders. The 50-year-olds can run the show. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of how the progression goes, right?
Mhm.
Unless all of a sudden that 19-year-old excels in his management skills, which
Yep.
Nick is finding. But I just think it's the mindset in America that we all need to be, you know, some sort of professional, not necessarily a tradesman.
So yeah, I think
That's all
it's the whole thing. Like, this has been, we lost out on the Gen X generation. Like, the baby boomers were heavy into the trades and stuff. I just don't see that it was really advocated to the Gen Xers. And now with the millennials,
Those boomers wanted more for us.
oh yeah, but it's yeah. It's,
I mean,
well,
I'm
yeah,
not kidding you.
No, seriously, you
Yes.
got to send your kids to
They
college.
want
yeah.
more for us.
But the problem is now, we're sort of at the time where the millennial generation, we think of millennials as all these young kids with their video games. They're all 18 to 36 now. They
Right.
are the
Yeah, they're-
entire millennial
they're
generation is
adults,
18 to
right.
36. I'm a millennial.
And let me jump out on a limb and say the millennials are really great when you understand what's going on with them.
Absolutely.
They really are.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like we think of them as these young kids, but not only will they be our employees and apprentices, they're going to be our customers, or are now.
They're going to be running the country, dude.
Absolutely,
So,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better get used to it.
Questions, and then do we need to wrap soon, or
We can, but
just
ask your questions and Nick will answer. But
Or Nick will tell you.
Or
Tell a painter.
let's talk about this real quick. We talked yesterday. You talked about flexibility in your business and how that's one of the perks, and that stirred up a lot of discussion. So tell us about that a little bit.
So one of the things is like, well, hey Nick, you don't offer any benefits to your people? I'm like, well, not what you would get at 3M if you were working. Like, I don't have a pension, I don't have paid sick days, I don't have a 401k, I don't have health insurance, but
You can in the middle of the year.
oh, that's
All those are
it's
coming. They're all coming.
I'm waiting for my PDCA healthcare, man.
It's coming. Association Health Plan, Association Retirement Plan.
So what I do offer, and I didn't really realize was a benefit until people told me I'm stupid for doing it, was my people just take off whenever they want. And if you set up this...
We need to have a reaction there.
But even, I'm not even afraid to say that, because it's not like all my people are going to be watching and be like, what? We can do what? It's like, no, listen, all my people want to be there, and we set up specific schedules for people around family and childcare. We have one person that has a schedule where it's either 22 minutes late one day, and then it's 37 minutes, but I'm going to be late this day. And he lays out 3 or 4 weeks for me of very specific dates and times, and he always shows up 7.5 minutes earlier than he said he was going to be. So it's like this last week I pulled him aside and said, you don't need to send me those emails anymore. Work out with your crew leader and just, I trust you're going to be here because he wants this job and he wants to do good. He's getting there as soon as he can. So what I do is people can take off whenever they want, and when you're talking about millennials, flexibility, that's one of the things that you taught me about millennials, was they want flexibility.
And I think it's great. You don't have to be so stringent with your hours if you don't have to be. So if you can accept somebody coming in 20 minutes late and you're not going to lose a great employee because you're flexible, why not?
Can you guys do me a favor and attack Nick? But sort of, I'm serious. Like,
Oh, yes,
really
yes.
jump on that, challenge it, because
Punch some holes in there.
Because you're out there asking questions. I see you. You.
Easy, geez, so aggressive.
They're asking questions.
why you hate them, bro?
Why you hate my audience, bro?
Right.
They are asking questions. They're challenging in their mind, so might as well let it surface.
This is
And
perfect.
then answer the questions.
Beat up a painter.
I mean, seriously, asking the questions that you
This
know
goes
people are
back
gonna
to
ask.
decent human beings again. You're back into the realm of somebody who wants to be on board with what the direction of the organization is. And, you know, from our side, we certainly have a flexible schedule here. People come and go if they, life's short. If your child's in that program at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you need to be there, you're never getting that back. So you better be there. Our expectation is that you're going to take advantage of those things. But our expectation is also we're not going to be taken advantage of from time and getting things done. So from my vantage point within our organization is there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in our schedule, and we rarely get burned on that. Rarely. And if you do, that gives you an opportunity to talk about the culture of the organization and to say, listen, the teammates around you are valuing this and they don't want to lose this, so you need to step in with that. But for us in our organization, it has worked extremely well and has given us, or either given us people that we couldn't have afforded to bring in because they value that so much, or we've retained people who probably should have left us financially, who say, I love the culture so much and the ability to be flexible that I couldn't have that anywhere else.
I'm still waiting on you guys to beat Nick up. So put a question out there, like ask him how all this works. Because
It all
the
sounds like
questions are out
mushy
there.
stuff, Nick. I got to spend time with people. I got to train them. I got to hold their hands, let them take off early. I got to trust them to do stuff. And you know how people are. Why do I have to? I just want to paint.
Why do we have to
Can I
keep
say
talking to
something with
humans
that?
all the time?
We feel like that because we know the damage it does when your folks can't show up to the 2 o'clock.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, and they can't go on a field trip, and there's no flexibility. And sometimes it's nice to work from home when there's a snowstorm, and we can't paint from home, obviously. But you know, I mean, just the culture of the way jobs are going, and it's, you know, you have to be at work from 7 to 3:30.
Right.
I mean, maybe not.
But you know, the big trade-off, and this is again the big kickback. Everybody's like, you're gonna just do that all the time, and it's like, well, there's a lot of things I don't have to deal with these type of people. So in the perfect world, people are like, you know, how do you find these people? How do you vet them? Another unsatisfying answer is they vet themselves. So I put out a certain type of ad that only attracts a certain type of people. So if you look at one of my ads, which I showed yesterday, my hiring ads, a 32-year-old guy who's the best painter in the world, who just happens to be out of work right now, you know, comes to you and says, I don't roll over in bed for less than $35 an hour. If he's looking for a painting job, he's going to look at that and, ugh. It's a gross ad. I have words like family, let me take care of it, you know, you make the cut, decent human beings, just, you know, it's all just like a very interesting ad, and it speaks to more of a person and not a thing, a craft, a skill. So by the time somebody gets through that, I've already weeded out almost everybody. I make a little ask. I say, you know, send me a resume, send me something. A lot of people don't have those. If they do that, they've already like jumped over 2 little hurdles. So by the time we sit down for the interview, they've already like self-selected themselves, and then by the time they get into the company, we're not worried about the cigarette breaks, the cell phones, the calling in late every Friday. It's just like, it just doesn't happen. So the trade-off is, yes, you have to form genuine human connections with people. For some of us, it's easier than others. It is an intentional effort. But you also don't have to deal with all that petty stuff that just brings you down, man. You know, so it is a trade-off, and you just decide what you want to do.
Okay. So that started up some conversation. If anybody has questions about any of this, please ask them. I know we're trying to wrap up a little bit, but quarterly. Torlando is commenting. He's got some good thoughts in here. And tell us your questions, Torlando. We need to kind of pock this idea. We need to like see if this really can hold up, okay? We need your guys' challenges, because otherwise they're out there. The questions are out there. I'd rather us answer them rather than let them go unanswered. Okay, so Torlando has some good thoughts. If you don't have a consistent feedback loop with millennials, they may not know that they are shorting themselves by not putting in enough hours. He also said earlier, we analyzed our reviews, and more important to the customer than the skill of the painter was the quality of the painter. Soft skills and being a decent human being is number 1. Okay, good thoughts, but let me take you, go ahead, and I'll take you to the next one.
Two very good points bore out from experience. Feedback. You always talk about feedback in millennials. Not participation trophies, right?
Right.
Yeah, feedback.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Really quickly, I think this hit me at a presentation in Washington recently, but the feedback is not, you have to make that intentional. It has to be routine. And us as owners, salespeople, right, production managers, we get feedback constantly, and we get that the customer bought from us, right? They sent us some good comments. If we didn't get feedback this week, I might go networking, see some friends.
Right.
Your employees might not be getting feedback, you know, so we have some benefits, you know, being in our positions that they don't get, so give them lots of feedback.
Okay, guys, quarterly goal setting. Go.
Don't like it, don't do it, don't care.
That's not true.
Didn't you just say the contrary like 45 minutes ago? Okay.
Lies.
To stir up some controversy. We're all too loving here. You know? It's like, oh, good job. This is so great. We're doing. No, listen. It's feedback. So what I'm interested in the painting world is I spent, like, if you could divide my business life in half. I've been in business for 11 or 12 years. The first half was feelings. I do stuff in the field, and I feel the results of it, and because it was just me, I didn't have a lot of data to track. I didn't have to. So coding science, people, sales was all, when I felt something right, I did more of that.
Okay.
Sorry. Everything's going haywire. So no, and the first half was feelings. The second half, I actually started finding people like art, paint chemists, where they actually told me the science behind it all. So I had this blurry feeling vision, and then I had the science behind it, and both of them snapped into in the last 2 to 3 years. So what I felt about all my millennials, I was doing in the field, and then Art came out with his millennial presentation. I think probably at a national expo I saw it first. Everything I felt, he put a word on his screen for, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was just going right down the list like, that makes absolute sense. So now I had a concise way of taking that back, because before I was like, they keep wanting me to talk to them. I don't want to talk to them. And Art was like, they need feedback. I'm like, okay, it's feedback. It's not, they're not just trying to take my time from me. They just want feedback.
It's not a conversation per per se. Just
Yeah.
It's just information. It's just information. That's it, and that's all.
And it's whole. And Art made a great point. I mean, we live in the Facebook, Instagram world where you put a picture up and instantly you get a numerical value feedback on how good or bad it is and comments underneath it. And it's like they want that in their personal life too. They want feedback. You know.
Are you saying views on a podcast?
Possibly.
I mean,
it depends how many
Facebook
there are.
Live.
Yeah, it depends how many there are.
Listens on a
I get
podcast.
I get 100% of my
Like and
value
share.
from the number of likes on Facebook Live.
You are just a Facebook persona. Matter of fact, there's nothing really here. It's just an image.
This is interesting. You know, I love talking about this so much. This is just another way to spur on conversation with guys like Torlando. He's a high-level thinker in this industry, and unless I call him up on the phone most of the time, this is a great avenue for this. And now it lives there for another painter 5 years from now to watch this and see the comments and then to keep it going. So, yeah.
I think this is interesting, and I hope it makes it easier for the people who are listening, but Nick keeps saying that uneventful or unsatisfying answers, I think that's when you just know that it's working and it's feel, but it's not mushy stuff. You said that the people are self-selecting, but they're only doing that because you wrote an ad that helped them self-select. So just know out there, when Nick says he has his processes in place and he's done these things, he had to get here to be here just like all of us, right? So he might have a hard time remembering what those steps were to get here, but he had to take them, and you should take them too.
Can I just,
Being intentional.
And I
it's
spent-
being intentional about those steps, saying, I'm going to create the culture and the process that fits me and makes me feel better about the business I run.
And I should say that I spent an inordinate amount of time. I look back on my 12 years of business with a lot of sadness because I didn't do this a lot earlier. I didn't meet you guys a lot earlier. I did that whole thing where I see a lot of disappointment. I see a lot of missed opportunity. I'm so glad I did it, but I got a lot of time to make up now. But it shouldn't be saying that, well, you just do this and it works. It's like, I spent 5 years doing this alone. And I mean, 5 years times 2,000 hours, 10,000 hours.
You probably worked more than 2,000 hours.
Well,
Yeah, a few more.
yeah, I think that's safe to say. We all do
Yes.
though, you know. So,
Sleeping bag in hand,
Yeah.
fishing rod, fishing rod, but sleeping bag.
but by the time, like, let's say before I started doing the decent human being thing, which is probably about 2.5 years ago, I might have put in 8 years times 2,500 hours a year into this before that. So when a painter in his first year comes to me and like, this is so confusing, it's like, you're so lucky you have resources like you guys and the PDCA and everything, but you can't replicate experience. You can maximize it and you can make it intentional, but you cannot replicate experience. The problem was I was very unintentional with my experience in probably the first 5 or 6 years. I just did stuff, white knuckle, sheer will. If I was a little more intentional, this would not be happening in my 11th year of business. This would be happening in my 4th year of business.
I think you can replicate that experience. I think you could intentionally drive somebody through that process faster.
to have the
I agree.
experience.
I agree.
Yeah, so I hope that the people listening don't look at this as an unquantifiable thing. If you're making 150 grand in your painting company, you want to do 300,000. You don't have to have all these things in place tomorrow. You know, it took Nick 8 years. It's going to take you 3 if you keep listening to the things he says.
Well, in 1 year, I just decided, you know, I lost my people. My knee-jerk reaction was hire 2 people a month and start training because I want an employee-proof company. I don't want to be affected by employee loss again. It took me a year of getting those people in place. I probably had somewhere between 6 and 10 employees at the end of that year. And then not only did I tractionize my business, I Googleized my business at the same time. I wrote down all my processes. I wrote down my sales process. I changed everything all at once because I was on such a kick of like, I was inspired. Like I met the it's not a coincidence that I met the PDCA and all the contractors in the PDCA the same time my business reset. And you can take a look at my unintentional growth curve and then PDCA, and it's just like
Yeah. Was your first expo 2016?
San Diego, I think.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Because I remember your mindset then was 180 now.
It was, well, and this is hilarious. You guys would love this. My first expo, I was loaded to the gills coming down to San Diego, and I was like, oh my God, the best painters in the world are going to be here. No, not that.
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, I got so much painting knowledge to share with these people. I've tested everything. I know the molecular science, and I got there. Nobody wanted to talk about paint.
Oh,
Everybody wanted to talk about
we know
business.
paint.
Yeah.
We want
And I
business.
was like, and I was such an amateur rookie. Immediately, like my Etch-a-Sketch got shaken, and I was humbled to the core. And I was standing there looking around at guys like like Gina Court and things like that, and I was just looking around like, oh my God, I have done nothing.
Like, weren't you on the other end of the panel, like a Scaturo type too, where
Oh yeah,
he's
like
doing multiple millions, and you're like, I'm cool at 300,000, and then everybody's like, no, you're not. You know.
Well, what's interesting is that like Dave was one of the first people to ever come up and introduce themselves at an expo, and I was like, "Oh, so you paint too, Dave, huh?" And he's like, "Sit down, Nick.
Yeah, that's
Come on, grab a beer. Let's go over here."
Right.
And the whole time I was like, "You do what?"
Hey,
You know,
but
it's just
you're
like-
selling yourself
yeah.
short just a little bit. There was a huge contribution you made. You made
Oh
waves.
my gosh.
People knew that
Yeah.
substance. You said nothing substitutes for substance.
I could
You
not.
can't be here without getting here. You got to
I-
get here to be here. That's true. You had that, and so that's what people saw. And people did love your education. I'm just going to tell you that.
Yes.
Like what you came and talked about, there was a
But-
huge buzz about it.
I was white knuckling my motorcycle as fast as I could, screaming at the top of my lungs, "I feel like doing something with my business," and I had no direction, and it was just like, I don't know what to do here. I wasn't raised in like a thing like this, and the mentality and the energy hasn't changed. It was just blasted out there in mass instead of very pointed directional. Now it's like, oh, I see Nick Lagrasso, I see his business, and I'm like, that's impossible, but doesn't mean you can't try. But now I have an example like that is theoretically possible in my world. And if